Hi, Team America. I'm Terry Fox. This is Mind War. On this channel, we like to talk about how we're living in a mind war, like one all the time. And it is being orchestrated by our society, our culture, our belief systems, but also our institutions, our media, but also how we talk to ourselves, our own internal dialogue, our interpersonal dynamics, our communication styles, our conflict styles. All of this stuff feeds into our understanding and how we create the stories of our lives, right? Or the stories that we tell ourselves, which then become the stories that we live, okay? So, what I wanted to talk today about was about like our central nervous system and why that is very much so in line with what we will talk about next, which are more of the universal laws. Because again, you need to know what the rules are, not the laws that somebody goes to law school for. That's fine. That's obviously relevant to aspects of our lives. I'm talking about the universal laws that actually dictate like our karmic lessons and ultimately our soul's trajectory, which many of us I think in a very limited view, and I'm just encouraging people, just something to think about. Again, thought provoking to the extent that it's helpful or interesting or whatever. Anyway, central nervous system. Now, your central nervous system is deeply tied to your energetic state, your aura, like what you're putting out into the world that is not tangible, but is tangible. It's your loosh, like we've talked about before. We are an energetic system. You are an energetic system. You have an aura. It's something that can be seen there are like devices in which these things are visible. And it is relevant to your kind of energetic output into the world, which then integrates with everyone else and creates our shared reality. Because remember, as we talked about before, we are a shared consciousness. We use our third eye to observe this reality. And the way that we perceive this reality feeds into that whole. So your perceptions about your reality are actually significantly, they're relevant to me. I know many people think that they just shouldn't care about anybody else. Okay. But I would argue they are also part of your shared reality. And they are actually creating the physical part with you. They're co-creators. Now, I do think that some people have more authority because they have learned how to be energetic authorities. But many people just surrender theirs. So in that sense, some people could be, I guess, more easily manipulated towards a specific type of reality versus another. Okay. Anyway, I'm digressing. My point is that your control of your central nervous system, and your central nervous system in general, helps to inform how you make meaning of your experiences in your reality. It's like your sensors. If you live in a state of constant fear, your experiences will probably reflect something fearful, right? That's why, like, some people, some people always seem to have some kind of drama going on every second of the day. And you can see how their behavior or their energy is feeding into that, right? We all know those people. We've all had experience. And we've also had people who attract great things, and we have people who just attract nonsense or whatever, right? That is all part of these energies that are just sort of these repeating patterns in existence, okay? So if you can be mindful of how your body is processing your experience, that is a sensory tool. It's interesting the way we separate like our mind from our bodies and health, and we really are messed up as a species. I digress. But your nervous system is it helps in your body's, how your body processes experiences, and it in many ways is your body's receiver, and that's why you have physical reactions to certain emotions like anxiety or fear, or people have your blood pressure spikes or your adrenaline kicks in, or those things are all a reaction derived from your central nervous system communicating with your brain, right? And being able to come inside to quiet your mind, to allow any emotion to move through you like you're water, not like you're a vessel. Okay? Emotions are just information. That's all it is. It's information. You don't need to hold on to all the information all the time. Sometimes you need to experience it. It needs to flow through you. But you can let it go. And getting in a practice of teaching yourself how to tell yourself that story, how to change the way that the energy is in your body. And this leads us to Law 6, which kind of, I guess, direction we're going in anyway. It's actually a great segue, which is the law of transmutation of energy, right? So you have the power to shift energy. You have the power to co-create the meaning from any experience. You may not have control of the experience, right? We often have experiences we don't have control over, and they induce certain emotions in us. But you don't have to have a predictable response to that emotion. You get to direct it. That's part of your consciousness. Isn't that lovely? So the more you can teach yourself to get into a habit of perceiving, certain emotions as if it's intelligence, as if it's, it has, that there is an intention there, and process what that means and be open to what that might mean. Make it about, it's like the idea of, sorry for that pause. It's the idea of when you're in conflict. You don't want to make it about the person, you want to make it about the problem. Okay? the best way to make conflict more difficult to manage or more entrenched is to make it about the person. You did this, you did that. The problem is the problem. What was the outcome that was the problem? Or what was the problem? Depersonalize it. Okay? So you can bring awareness to your own experiences, and through that awareness, you can better manage and direct how you're going to make meaning from that experience. And the more deliberate you are about that, the more conscious you are about that, the more practiced you are about that and disciplined, then you will be, in better control of your central nervous system, your loosh, how your energy is getting put out into the world, and then therefore your reality. Okay. So you want to think about like turning, fear to power, right? How do you get into a habit of approaching fear from a place of how do I gain power from this? That might be an interesting exercise. But you are the product of your behaviors. You're the product of the people you're around. You're the product of your everyday rituals. You can call it whatever the hell you want. I don't care. The things you do every day. Do you read? Do you not read? Do you allow new information in? Do you not? Do you spend time, doing anything? What are your daily habits? Are you conscious of what you consume? Or do you get exercise? All these things create your reality, right? We know this. This isn't complicated. But it also applies to your brain, right? We can make sense of that when you're like, well, of course, if I eat sweets constantly and that's all I'm eating all the time and I don't exercise, and then yeah, this is going to be the consequence. But yet for some reason we have a disconnect with our own minds where we say, hey, garbage in, garbage in, garbage in, garbage in, and somehow we come to greatness from that. I'm not really sure. All right, so law 7, which is cause and effect. Newton's third law, right? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? This is to karma. This is what we talk about in karma, right? So you can do anything that you want in this world, but you don't get to hurt people. Again, you can. Obviously, people do it all the time. But when you do, those are karmic consequences that carry a lot of weight, which will follow you. Just saying. So that's just like a thing. I don't care if you believe me or not. Your karma is not my problem. My karma is my problem, not yours. So you don't have to believe it. But just know that it is probably a thing, and maybe you want to think about it. So outside of that, cause and effect, think about it. I like to think about it more in terms of like the repeated behaviors, right? Going back to what we said a little bit ago, I think, unless it doesn't make a cut somewhere, we are all being brainwashed. All of the stuff that you consume is some form of brainwashing. Now, you can brainwash yourself. That's what I would encourage you to do. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the mind war that's happening all around us and what we're going to decide to use as information, okay? That propels us forward. But every like emotion or behaviors or thoughts, all of these things, particularly when repeated over and over and over again, create your reality, right? And we talk about like, like the consequences of our actions, and we talk about the sometimes that we don't see the consequences. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we feel let down by what we end up seeing as being the consequences. But rest assured, in universal structure, it circles back. The energy always circles back. So that should help many people anyway, in terms of like how they come to peace with, cause and effect, and the idea of karma. And I think that we are going to see more and more of it play out as we see power shift, just because it's reached a tipping point. Again, the power has to shift because it's become so imbalanced and unsustainable. If you want to blame anyone, like power holders, this is for you. If you want to blame anyone for the instability and the teetering on the edge of fucking despair, look no further than yourself. Because you decided to take us to a place that was not sustainable. You created such imbalance, or you permitted it, you condoned it, whatever your role was. And now it's way out of bounds. And that's a pendulum, right? We're on a pendulum, kids. So that's a pendulum. So we swing out on this imbalanced pendulum, and it's going to swing back. And then we're going to have imbalance. I'm just not sure I understand why we're on this like carnival ride pirate ship all the time of rickety, falling apart equipment, and there are people bickering about if we're going to turn the ride off. Like, what is going on? Honestly, I want to make sure that you're thinking through, especially again, if something could hurt another person, that you're really thinking through the cause and effect of it. I don't think that enough of you are doing that. And I suspect that there are some people who are going to happen to see this that have some sort of authority, and they have not been considering the effects of what they're doing and the weight that it's placing on them karmically. Now, I think that, I know I'm not the only one, but I think some of us are maybe trying to get you to wake up because we think that you are great. And maybe we don't even know it. But maybe you are great. And you're like fucking it up. So, give it a little think. Give it a little think. Give it a little think. All right. Talk about Law 8, which is the law of compensation. And this idea is that you're rewarded in direct proportion to your effort, your intentions, your integrity. Now, I know some people might say, oh, yeah, that's not quite accurate. I don't feel like I'm rewarded for it. And that's fair. I hear you. Sometimes I don't feel rewarded for it either. However, the arc of time is long, right? Remember, you may not receive that energy back to you in that moment. You may receive it in the future. You also can't predetermine how you're going to receive it. So just be mindful that, what goes around comes around. It always does. That's kind of the entire idea around it, right? The universe responds to your energy. Energy follows thought, right? So if you're putting out energy that particularly is your intentions, your actions are aligning with your purpose, that's where you get your manifestation. That's where you get it actually materializing for you, because all of those things are in line. They're stacked up. They're created. Okay? And that is really, that law of compensation is oriented around your purpose, because that's what you're here for. You came here for a reason. Your soul came here for a reason. You forgot that reason when you arrived, and you're here to remember it if you so choose. It's choose your own adventure. You have free will. You don't have to do that. But you should do that. You might want to do that. That's maybe why you're here. And so what I say with this also is just the idea that we also need to be able to receive the energy back to us. A lot of us live in a place of lack, and so we're not the best receivers of, positive energy coming back to us, right? And so trying to create a mindset of I don't want to say positivity, because I don't mean that. I mean more of abundance, right? That you are as entitled to anyone to having all of the good stuff, all of the good things in your life. You're entitled to that as much as just anyone else is, okay? But it's a mindset. If you're constantly telling yourself that you're not worthy, guess what? It's going to show up as it's just not, because you're not worthy. You've already decided that in your mind that you weren't worthy, okay? And I also wanted to just bring up a little story, because I challenge people to maybe do something like this too. Just like in terms of, while we're on like the idea even around compensation, we live in a really challenging world right now. We live in an astronomically expensive environment in America. The food prices are outrageous. And so years ago, I did an experiment where at the time, the poverty rate was like $1.50 a day or something. And so I, for a week, ate off of just $1.50 a day. And how I kind of organized it was around the cost per serving of certain things. And then there were some things that I completely excluded, assuming that I would never be able to really afford them. And then I allowed myself to have coffee because I'm nobody's hero. But I didn't have creamer in it. And then I did 2 nights, I had 9 pistachios. But the idea really was, I wanted to see, could I actually have that sort of restriction on diet and work out the way that I did? Because I was sick of hearing people say that, people have access to it and they just don't do anything with it. And yes, that might be true with some people, but when you don't have access to good food, or you're not consuming food that is a fuel for your body responds to that, right? So kind of going back to I guess cause and effect, right? But my point is that there were a few things that I learned. Like, one, my sodium intake went crazy high because you wouldn't be able to afford good fats or the things or a lot of spices, the things that give you your food flavor. And fresh stuff was not even going to happen. I think I had fresh potatoes and that was it. And variety didn't happen. It was sort of just a few things that I was consuming, and everything, any veggies or whatever, that was frozen. There was no way I couldn't afford anything fresh. My point was, it was really challenging, and I only did it for a week, and I can't imagine trying to do that with a family. And that was also with the privilege of my having time to meal plan and try to figure this all out. My education that helps me understand what kind of fuel certain foods actually give my body, or food combinations to consume to optimize, right? It was really challenging. So I guess my point is just that, some of us contribute to society through our businesses, through our innovation, through, these big execution of big ideas. But we also need to think about the energy the human energy that we're putting out, because that is also a cycle. Your businesses create energetic flow states that are integrated with your employees and how you treat them. They're integrated with your consumers and how you treat them. And it becomes a feedback loop. And so it's important that you're mindful of like the spectrum of struggles that people have, because at a very foundational level, food is fuel. So you might want to do a little experiment. My point is just that, you probably wouldn't have people in that state, I would hope, that are working for you. However, you have people in your community that are experiencing that. And it might be a good experience for you to, just see how it is. See what it's like on the other side, especially those of you who have obscene amounts of money. Maybe give it a whirl. Anyway. All right. So law 9, the law of relativity. So everything's relative, right? Everything that you are experiencing is filtered through your lens and your perception, right? It's how you integrate it with the world around you and all of your experiences, and right? It's not necessarily that things are good or bad, it's what we assign to them. And I think about this one actually I like to think about it anyway. I'm a silver linings kind of gal. I think maybe I've said that before. I'll always find like a silver lining in everything. But conflict, right? So conflict, most people are conflict avoiders. They will avoid conflict at all costs. And that's fine to the extent that that's productive for you. But most people, it's not. It becomes destructive. Conflict can be constructive. Conflict should be constructive. Conflict is not an inherently negative term or word or whatever thing. It's an emotion you are choosing to assign to it that makes it less constructive in your own life. That's a choice. So again, as we talk about how do we brainwash ourselves, another idea, brainwash yourself in addition to how you might want to think about fear differently and to train your own reaction to fear differently. You might want to think about conflict differently, to train your reaction to conflict, to see conflict not as a negative, having a negative connotation. That's your assignment to conflict. It's neither good or bad. It tends to be bad because we make it bad. But I would also point out that nothing has ever happened without it. Right? No progress has ever happened without it. So it's very important. So when you think about yourself and your own perceptions, train yourself to see conflict as either neutral or, probably neutral, but or even positive. You don't want to be so positive where you're just inserting conflict into your life. That would be insane. But don't run from it, because if you can master tension and being in tension, that's a tactic. That's something you can do. That's something you can control. That can give you an advantage. So your thinking around conflict should change if you want to, if you want to confront anything or you want to see change. If you want to see change, you need to see conflict differently. Because if you're just always going to see it as something negative or having some sort of negative effect, conflict doesn't have to be violence. It's only one way of expressing conflict. Okay? This is America, for God's sake. We don't have something better? Come on. Anyway, so constructive conflict. And the other thing I would add to that is relative to the law of relativity would be, practicing gratitude, like being able to have that lens of comparison, right? You cannot know love without hate. You can think you know love, but until you feel something visceral, you probably don't fully understand how powerful that is, right? It's almost like sometimes you have to experience the contrast for you to appreciate the thing, right? So practicing gratitude, and gratitude maybe for the conflict, right? How's that sound? Because it does get you somewhere. It's somewhere versus, I don't know, hanging out in limbo, right? Okay. And then law 10, which is the last one we're going to do today, which is the law of polarity. And again, everything has an opposite. The opposites actually, as we were talking about even relativity, the opposites give us that meaning, right? It's like, again, you can't know real darkness until you've seen the light, right? And it's like we, in our creation of our reality, are becoming darker. Well, there's a population of us who are becoming darker. But have you also noticed, or you should notice, or if you didn't notice, I'm telling you, there is a population of people who are bringing the light. And I don't give a shit if that sounds woo-woo to you or whatever you think it sounds like. And again, you can think about that in a religious context, because I'm sure that you do see it in religions all over the place, that there are people who are creating new connections with new people. But you also have people outside of those institutions that are bringing ideas to people, bringing unifying thoughts, like bringing a sense of, we're creating our future. We're creating right now the future that our kids are going to live in. So let's get it together, right? So sometimes I feel like because so many of us have lost connection with anything bigger than us, that it's like we become darker. It's like the collection of us has lost sight of the light. And our cynicism, our snide commentary, our disrespect of one another, the languages they use, the words that come out of our mouths, the words we type, our social media platforms, and how we interact with people different than us, the way we elevate people. It's like we're becoming darker and darker and darker. Or, I don't want to say darker because I don't mean that's necessarily like people are becoming darker demon. I'm saying that they're becoming darker in that they're losing sight of the light. Or an awareness of it. in some people, I think we've talked about this, I don't know, months ago. I think that there are some people who have lost touch with the light, and it was from their own doing. And they're trying to drag other people into the hole that they're in. But I think that some of those people actually do have fragments, and they're practicing they're smothering it out right now. I don't know why. And I know that there's a lot of disappointment from the spirit world going on in our leaders. But you guys know that. I'm not the first one to tell you that. I see the other people talking to you. I see what other people are saying. You guys I don't know what you're leading to. I don't know what you're leading us to, but you're taking us somewhere. But again, I would say, I'm digressing, we actually have more control than anyone wants you to think. Because you are a co-creator in this reality. And the collective actually chooses it. We're the arbiters of dignity. We are the ones who decide. It's actually all on us. It's not on the people with the money. You think it is. The only reason why, it's because they're buying your attention. They buy your attention through entertainment, bread and circus, right? Through products and entertainment. Bread and circus. That's all it is. The consumption, the media, products, media, bread, circus. There you go. It's okay that we have bread and circus. Just like it's okay that we have shepherds and sheep. For a little while I was like, fuck that. Why are there so many sheep? And then I came to realize, I'm like, you know what? There are always going to be sheep. It's okay. Some people are fine being sheep. They want to be sheep. And it's not a bad thing. We're all sheep and shepherds at different moments in time. That the opposite actually brings meaning to the experience. Light helps you understand dark. Right? You can't really appreciate it until you know the opposite. I think for us, like in our society, it's like we see these artificial aspects of the light. We see these notions of light. We see this celebrity lies. We see, again, it's just artificial. False light. We see false light all over the place. And that's what we then perceive as the light. And then we become more and more cynical and more disillusioned and more distrustful and more circling a drain because and become more dark collectively because we chose artificial light to look to, which is absurd. Had we been looking at true light all along, we probably wouldn't have fully fell into the despair of cynicism. Cynicism and, sarcasm and all that kind of stuff is very fun. It can be very fun. It can be very funny. Gen X is an entire generation built on it. And it is hilarious in many ways. It's also damaging in huge quantities. So it feels like collectively that is part of the tension, is that we are circling this darkness that we don't fully want to see, but it's there. We don't want to integrate it because we don't want to dissect it. because we're scared of it, frankly. We don't really want to know what it means. If we dissect it, then we have to ask what it means. The Epstein files. If we dissect it, really dissect it officially, then we have to ask what the fuck was going on there. What does it mean? Like everyone else, this whole time has been obsessing over what's been happening, or what was happening, what they were, like the things, which is a thing. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't look at that. What we should be asking is why? Why were they doing the weird shit they were doing? Because it's in the why that is the real rabbit hole, guys. It's in the why. It's in the why and the follow and the money. Do we really have to, like, I can't believe you have to even, like, say these things. Anyway, it feels like there's something there of, like, our collective darkness that it feels like we almost are trapped in a way. We're in a loop. We're in a collective loop because we're not willing to rip the fucking Band-Aid off. We're not willing to look at it, and we're not willing to put it to bed. We're not willing to do anything with it, actually. And then our resolution of light are false light bad actors, which is also absurd, in which we give money to constantly, and we're constantly elevating. And is it any wonder that we're sort of a fucking mess? I'm not surprised. I mean, are you surprised? Honestly, can we get in the comments? Is anyone surprised that we're here? I'm not surprised that we're here. I'm not surprised that we're here. All right, that's all I have for you guys. I just want to say we're going to continue to push through with these different universal laws because they're important, because they help you understand the foundation of the way in which you energetically interact with the universe. What it's worth. Your superheroes.